So in this video, I'm pretty much trying to make a shorter version of my Asta versus Sukuna debunk video. Well, not much of a debunk, it's more so like a review. But yeah, in that video, that 2-hour plus long video, me and my friend Abyss were just pretty much pointing out the stuff that Roku got wrong about JJK and like the power system and how certain abilities work, and stuff that he left out that would be good for Sukuna, like win cons, such as he left out binding vials and black flashes and so on and so forth. So in this video, I'm just making a shorter version. I've picked out 9 clips that were, so yeah, hopefully you guys prefer this version than the 2-hour plus long version. So yeah, without further ado, sit back, relax, and hopefully you enjoy the video.
Flash allows him to cut through the fabric of reality itself, cutting through space. And this is how he defeated the greatest sorcerer today. Okay, so let's go through all of these scenarios. Say Sukuna takes Asta seriously by activating his Malevolent Shrine domain expansion right from the jump. This gives him a range of 200 meters where he can attack from anywhere, allowing him to effectively spam his slashing attacks of Dismantle and Cleave. Now, if only Asta had ever faced a character that could spam an ungodly amount of slashes, it would be hard to perceive. Oh wait, he actually did go against a character that did that when he faced off against the likes of Paladin Damnatio. His atmosphere magic allowed him to attack from a range and slice open his opponents with invisible slashes from every direction.
So omnidirectional air slashes from Damnatio is not the same compared to Sukuna's slashes and his domain expansion slashes. Sukuna's slashes has durability negation type slash, especially with his Cleave, not his Dismantle. His Dismantle is pretty much a regular slash, but his Cleave literally adjusts to your durability. And a domain expansion sure hit, which would be Sukuna's slashes, is an attack that doesn't exist until it hits you. So omnidirectional air slashes is not the same as a domain expansion sure hit. You would have to prove that Asta's anti-magic can negate something that doesn't even exist before it hits him.
Attacks at Asta, he's able to surround himself in a wave of anti-magic, completely nullifying all the slashes. This would be comparable to Gojo's Falling Blossom of Motion, which uses Curse Energy to fight back against the sure hits. Considering that Asta's anti-magic energy packs a higher potency than Gojo's Curse Energy and is an energy with the purpose to nullify, it should nullify all of Sukuna's slashes from his domain expansion.
This was another part of Broku's video that me and Abyss disagreed with. So anti-magic, it's not the same as Falling Blossom Emotion, because what Falling Blossom Emotion does, it makes a counterattack with cursed energy the moment the can't miss attack makes contact. So it has this instantaneous reaction speed so that you take less damage. And what we see in Gojo's case, Gojo's, like the amount of slashes that hit Gojo prior to his Falling Blossom Emotion and Simple Domain is a lot more than when you used Falling Blossom Emotion, where there's a lot less slashes that's going on Gojo. So Falling Blossom Emotion can negate the can't miss attack before it even strikes Gojo or strikes you, which is something that's anti-magic has never done, right? We've never seen anti-magic, or there's no evidence to even prove that anti-magic can negate something that's non-existent. It's just a false equivalence, and you can't just equate the two just because they can nullify stuff.
Domain expansion. As there is a point in time where Gojo actually stopped using reverse curse technique and is taking out a bunch of these sure hits, and while they are damaging him, they're not actually doing that much damage. They are not killing Gojo. Again, Asta is much stronger and more durable than Gojo, which means Asta is probably going to be waltzing right through a Malevolent Shrine.
Okay, so for one, Gojo took a lot of damage. Like, he's gushing, like, blood fluids is just pouring out of him, like, just spraying out of him from that slash that he showed. And you could also argue that it was Sukuna himself that landed those slashes instead of the sure hit, because they were fighting in the simple domain, although the simple domain was breaking, and there was like a little bit, well, Gojo before the slash was standing in a little bit of his simple domain and got slashed, you could easily argue Sukuna was the one that did those slashes. And right after that, Gojo opens up another simple domain from the right after he got hit, and then he turns off his reverse curse technique whilst in his simple domain, and he actually was still using his reverse curse technique, but it was just on his curse technique, which is why he was able to speed blitz Sukuna right after his second simple domain breaks, because obviously Sukuna didn't know that Gojo could do that, and Gojo did that off the fly. You could also argue that Sukuna is holding back due to Gojo's statement confirming that Sukuna is holding back, and Sukuna was fighting recklessly because he wanted to evolve his curse technique. And also, in this fight, Sukuna's domain expansion doesn't spam nearly as much slashes as it did when Gojo's domain first broke. As we see, when Gojo's domain first broke and he lost the clash, Sukuna does one attack, one slash on his throat, which then Gojo healed instantly, and then he spams the slashes. And then after that, Sukuna doesn't do as much slashes because he wants to evolve his curse technique, which is why right after the second simple domain breaks, Gojo isn't being bombarded by slashes. So he's just simply holding back and not going all out as what Gojo confirms. So you can't really use this as evidence as Asta just Chad walking through Sukuna's domain expansion. It's not going to work because Sukuna has durability, negation, slashes, and he can also attack you on a spiritual level, as shown when Sukuna slashed Mahito and actually damaged him, which Mahito, you can only really do soul damage to actually do damage to him. So yeah, you could argue that Sukuna, if he wanted to, could just attack Asta's soul as well with Dismantle.
And that is, can Asta actually counter World Slash? This is a new and improved version of Dismantle that Sukuna can level up with either a Binding Vow or a Chant that attacks space itself. We can actually look at similar attacks in Black Clover and see how Asta fares against those. And, well, he's already negated attacks like this before when he faced off against Longris, whose attacks are stated to erase space, and in the data book is stated to carve out the universe itself. A pretty weak version of Asta's anti-magic was able to easily erase this spatial erasure magic. This is Asta in, chapter 129, which is his regular black form. The anti-magic in his current base form is many levels above this, so either Asta negates the slash directly with his own anti-magic, or he just tanks it. Also, World Slash is dodgeable, so even if you don't want to say that Asta can nullify it, he would be able to easily get out of the way, as characters much slower than him have been able to dodge it.
So, Broku's just objectively wrong about World Slash. It's not like Dimension Slash where it only cuts space. What World Slash does is that it targets existence, right? As what Sukuna says after he explains that World Slash cuts or target is space, existence, and the world themselves. Sukuna says to this dead Gojo that without regards for your invulnerability, as long as it exists within that space, that world, those existences would be split apart. So what he's essentially saying that since space exists and the world exists, right, those existences will just get cut because that's what World Slash does. Its target is existence, not just space. Space is just a byproduct of what it can cut. So, and since Asta exists within the space that they're fighting in, Asta and his anti-magic will just get cut in half. And also, as the Kashimo thing, Kashima only dodged because he got the extra reaction time from Sukuna saying, dodge this before he does the incantations and stuff. So that's why he was able to dodge, and well, he didn't even fully dodge, he still got tagged.
It was anti-magic to nullify mana zones from characters much stronger than Sukuna. Mana zones being a technique where a territory is made where they control said space and the mana within it, letting their attacks attack from any direction, which is similar to domain expansion, though it is different. The vice captain of the Black Bulls, Noct, created a mana zone in his fight with Asta, who with a single slash nullified the spatial territory. I can also mention that even when two characters merge their mana zone together at full power, Asta and his double union, just by existing within it, is nullifying that space, which would actually show that also just by existing in this union form, it's basically Asta's own simple domain or domain application on steroids, meaning that it is likely that none of Sukuna's sure hits would even reach his anti-magic armor, as it would be nullified before that, and there would be nothing to hit. And don't forget.
So, Mana Zone and domain expansion is also one of the objectively different things. So, they're not the same, right? So, what Mana Zone does, let's use the data book and then we'll go into what the manga says. So in the data books, it says, dominates the field by manipulating the mana in the surrounding area. The mana zone is a technique that goes beyond mana skin and controls even the mana of the entire area. If you've mastered this, you'll be able to release more magical power than you originally could from anywhere within the zone. It's also a great way to make sure that you don't get caught in a trap. In addition, you will be able to move freely even in the air. And then in the manga, it says it's the ability to harness the mana that's floating in the surrounding area and control that territory at will. Within that territory, you can discharge more mana than you personally have from any direction. So it's literally just manipulating the mana in a certain area. It's not actually spatial domination or like a spatial territory. When they say spatial territory, they're just talking about how you can manipulate the mana within said distance, within said radius, right? Unlike a domain expansion where you're actually creating a subspace, right? A sub-dimension, and within that dimension, you can pretty much do whatever you want, right? We've seen like Gojo's basketball domain where the exterior is smaller, vastly smaller than the interior. That's because it's a subspace. So they're not the same, and just because like the omnidirectional attack is not the same as an attack that doesn't exist until it just appears on you.
Re-heal until Asta's out of stamina and then defeat Asta when he has no power. Unfortunately for Sukuna, Asta already has a counter to this as well, as one of the effects of anti-magic is regeneration negation. That's what Asta used his true level of anti-magic. He launched a slash on Dante that Dante could not regenerate from, and we actually see that his body magic can completely heal him when he gets vaporized by Yami's black holes. Dante's regeneration is so potent that even Jack's adapted slashes could not negate his regeneration, even though he could negate Fauna's regeneration back in the Elf arc. Not even Lucius clones, who have the magic type of all of the Dark Triad, can regenerate from a fraction of Asta's current anti-magic power. Effectively, whatever wound Asta puts on Sukuna with anti-magic, reverse curse technique is not going to be able to recover from it. But even if you think RCT would still work, Asta can still use Causality Break to either shut off his curse energy so he cannot use RCT, or even possibly reverse its causality. I think I've shown.
Okay, so first off, positive energy, which is reverse curse technique, is the opposite of cursed energy. So it's not magic based. And we know that positive energy negates cursed energy. So you could say that positive energy would be the equivalent to anti-magic if we want to do the whole equalization thing, since anti-magic negates magic and it's pretty much the opposite of magic or whatever. But the other thing is that Sukuna's regeneration level is far superior to anyone in Black Clover, because they can regenerate on a spiritual level. Well, not they, I mean Sukuna can regenerate on a spiritual level due to him taking damage from Soul Split Katana, which is spiritual. It attacks on a spiritual level, as the name Soul Split Katana. So you would have to prove that Asta can negate regeneration on that caliber. If he can't, then you can't say that he can do that. And that level of regeneration, based on like the tiering system for regeneration, is like godly tier. And as for the whole causality break thing, you would have to prove that causality can negate regeneration on that level. You can't just say, well, actually it just won't work because positive energy is not cursed energy. So yeah, it is what it is.
As the Divine General, Mahoraga. Can the Shikigami adapt to the phenomena of anti-magic? Well, this one is actually harder to answer than I thought, because it actually depends on how exactly Mahoraga's adaptation works. If the adaptation is through his curse energy, then this is something that might not work against anti-magic. But if his adaptation is actually his physical biology, then it might. But there's a massive hint that can help us figure that out. Shikigami cannot be seen by non-sorcerers, and that is because non-sorcerers cannot see curse energy, or curse spirits, because they are made of curse energy. This then means the Shikigami are also constructs of curse energy, putting Mahoraga as a similar type of creature to the elemental spirits, who are comprised entirely of mana, which makes me believe that not only would Mahoraga not be able to regenerate because of Asta's layered regeneration negation, but the anti magic would also significantly hamper his adaptation. This brings up a question that I probably should have answered earlier. How is...
I don't know how Broku missed this, but Sukuna literally tells us in the Shinjuku fight, or wait, no, not the Shinjuku, in the Shibuya fight, when he fights Mahoraga, that Mahoraga's adaptation is based on the wheel. It's all got to do with the wheel, which is why when Sukuna has the wheel above his head, he can continue adapting for Mahoraga. He even says that he will adapt to infinity when he was going to open his last domain expansion, that this domain expansion was going to have a barrier, so Gojo couldn't escape. Yeah, it's all about the wheel and not a cursed energy thing or biology thing. It's just the wheel. Anybody who has the wheel on top of their head has Mahoraga's adaptation ability. As for what Mahoraga is, it's impossible for Shikigami to actually be like cursed spirits, because as I pointed out earlier, Mahoraga has the Executioner's Sword, and he can imbue that sword with positive energy, which negates cursed energy. And if Sukuna, as strong as he is, was a cursed spirit, he would have just died. So, and since Mahoraga just doesn't pop whenever he uses positive energy, clearly he's not a cursed spirit, but he could be a spiritual entity, since cursed spirits also have souls in that. So he could be something astral that isn't the same as cursed spirits.
Let's say that Mahoraga fully adapts to Asta. Is it over for the Flow of the World? We know that if the curse technique gets cancelled or nullified, that it actually invalidates Mahoraga and his adaptation, which means that if Asta does Causality break on Sukuna's power, it would actually affect Causality, so that Mahoraga was never actually summoned, and likely revert all of his adaptation.
No. So, it's... the wheel only turns black when Sukuna is nullifying Gojo's curse technique, not when somebody else is using domain amplification against Sukuna. That's not what Gojo was pointing out. And also, if Mahoraga adapted to Asta's techniques, then Causality Break wouldn't even work on him, and nor do I think it would work on him, because you're presupposing that Mahoraga is made out of magic, or in this case cursed energy, which I think I've proven why he isn't. So you would have to prove that Asta's Demon Destroyer Sword could just negate adaptation that's on a conceptual level, since we know that Mahoraga's adaptation is on such a level due to the narrator's statement in the Sukuna versus Mahoraga fight. And also, the adaptation stuff isn't magical, you're presupposing that it's magical, and also the wheel is magical. That's what you're presupposing for Asta's Demon Destroyer to actually be valid.
Asta. This leads to World Slash, which again is a spell that he can actually see and be dodged, as we saw Maki do that. Asta is many times faster than her. There's no reason why he could not actually dodge it. Asta's sensory abilities are so good that even when he is trapped inside of a space with no light and a spell that blocks out the sensing of life energy, so he can...
And as for Maki didn't, like, Sukuna didn't use World Slash on Maki, as his bottom left arm, well, hand is still missing, so he couldn't do the hand sign for it. So he didn't use World Slash then, just a regular enchanted slash. And as for the Asta sensing thing, we know that Asta went into Devil Union to some degree and caused the mana zone of Noct to, like, you know, brighten up a bit, because there's a portion where there isn't any, like, shadows. There's just light, so he was able to, like, see Noct and then obviously do the slash and negged his mana zone. So it wasn't a sensing feat in the sense of what you were trying to, like, make it to be.
That's Infinity Slash. Infinity Slash is Asta's own copied version of Yami's Dimension Slash. There is debate of whether or not it cuts through dimensions like Yami's, but I think there's actually a lot of evidence that it does. I mean, there's just the fact that we've seen him copy abilities from other characters, and this is him using Yami's sword. And in light novel, we know that when characters use items and use it with their magic, their life energy, their magic, their soul gets imbued into it over time. It can even turn regular items into talking, living items. So if he has Yami's sword, why is it that crazy that he couldn't use similar abilities? The naming conventions are there. There's Infinity Slash and Infinity Slash Equinox, and there's Dimension Slash and Dimension Slash Equinox. But we also actually see Infinite Slash cut through space. Remember, it destroyed Nox's Mana Zone. Mana Zone is taking control of an already existing physical space and making that your own spatial territory. But that means that this is physical space, not magical space. This is further supported by Bell's description of Yuno's Mana Zone. And remember, Asta destroyed Mana Zone, so he has destroyed physical space with Infinite Slash. You could try and argue that he's destroying the mana with the Mana Zone, but that's not really what's stated. Plus, we've already seen anti-magic work on physical space before, as he pierced holes through Dante's warp space, which is physical space warped by his gravity. So with Infinite Slash being able to cut space, and also being stronger than Sukuna, it would be an attack that could likely not only counter Sukuna's World Slash, but also land a death blow, and would likely overwhelm Mahoraga as well. So yeah, I think Asta is like the perfect counter.
This is another thing that we also disagreed with. So first off, the first scan that he showed, it says magic tools absorb life energy. And regardless with that, if magic is imbued in the sword, in the katana, then Asta's anti-magic would just completely negate it. Because that's what anti-magic does. Just negate magic. So, and also we've seen Yami use Dimension Slash with other swords. Yami's katana was just a regular ass sword. So you can't just say, oh, it's like the sword's ability to like cut space. No, that's what darkness can do. It has these spatial properties where it like warps space. It can bend the light, like, you know, it's just, it has spatial properties. It's not the sword's ability. Plus, Asta already tells us what Infinite Slash does. He says, Demon Slasher chooses what to cut. It's a katana that doesn't cut what it wants to protect. So, yeah, it's not a spatial slash like Dimension Slash. Although the names are similar, well, just one word in their name, which is just Equinox, is similar, but it doesn't mean it's the same. There's just no evidence to actually prove that it's the same. And that's it for the video. If you guys like my content and you want to help your boy out and have a bit of a lavish life and help pay the editors, then do join the Patreon, look at the perks, and if you like what you see, then join the Patreon. If not, say less. The Patreon isn't always for everybody. But anyways, that's it for the video, and until next time, peace.